Right now, somewhere in a factory outside Hanoi, a worker is assembling the exact same type of sneaker that used to be made in Guangzhou. And somewhere in a boardroom in Munich, a supply chain executive is running a presentation called, and I'm not making this up, China Plus One. The world's manufacturing map is being redrawn. But here's what nobody is explaining. China didn't lose. It evolved. And understanding why that happened tells you everything about where your phone, your car, and your clothes are going to come from in 2030. By the end of this video, you'll understand why this changes everything. Let's go back to 1978 because what happened next is one of the most unlikely economic stories in human history. China in 1978 was largely agrarian. Mao Zedong had just died. The country was still recovering from the devastation of the Cultural Revolution. Industrial output was minimal. Exports were almost nothing. The West? Comfortable, confident, running factories, paying workers, and assuming the model would last forever. Then Deng Xiaoping did something radical. He opened 4 small patches of land along China's southern coast, called Special Economic Zones, and essentially told the world's corporations, come build your factories here, and we will make it worth your while. Low taxes, relaxed regulations, and most critically, wages that were a fraction of what you'd pay anywhere in the developed world. Western companies came. And they didn't just bring themselves. They brought their entire supply chains with them. General Electric, Nike, Motorola, hundreds of brands that American and European consumers trusted, built in China because the math was simply too good to ignore. But here's the curiosity gap most economists skip over. This wasn't just about cheap labor. Something deeper was being constructed, and the West would spend the next 30 years not noticing, until it was far too late. Then something shifted, and it was seismic. Within a single decade, cities like Shenzhen transformed from fishing villages of under 30,000 people into industrial megacities of 3 million, then 10 million, then 14 million. Not gradually, explosively. The speed of it had no precedent in recorded economic history. By 2001, China joined the World Trade Organization, and the floodgates opened completely. Here is the number that should stop you cold. In 1990, China accounted for roughly 3% of global manufacturing output. By 2010, that number was 20%. One country, 20% of everything the world makes, in 20 years. So how did they do it that fast? 3 things that no one else could match simultaneously. Scale. China had 1 billion people, and tens of millions of them were ready to leave rural villages and work in factories. The labor pool was essentially unlimited. Infrastructure. The Chinese government didn't just build factories. They built roads, ports, railways, and power grids around those factories, at a speed that democracies with environmental review processes simply could not compete with. And then there was the cluster effect. This is the secret weapon most analysts barely mention. When enough factories making the same product move to one region, an entire ecosystem forms around them. Suppliers, logistics networks, specialized tool makers. You want to make shoes in China? Within 30 miles, you can source every component, every machine, every grade of rubber and leather and thread, ready to ship tomorrow. Try replicating that ecosystem somewhere else. It takes decades. Sometimes it takes generations. But that's not the whole story, because around 2010, quietly at first, then loudly, something started to crack. Wages. In 2005, the average Chinese factory worker earned approximately $1 an hour. By 2023, that figure had climbed to over $6 an hour. In coastal manufacturing hubs like Shenzhen, closer to 9 or 10. And here is where it gets revolutionary. For a t-shirt, for a cheap toy, for a basic plastic component, that math starts to matter. A lot. Suddenly, Vietnam at $3 an hour looks very attractive. Bangladesh at $1.50 looks even better for basic garments. And Mexico, which lets you eliminate ocean freight entirely, is getting a serious second look from every company selling into North America. But wages are only part of the story. What they discovered next caught even the engineers off guard. The second crack was geopolitical, and it hit like a freight train. The US-China trade war that ignited in 2018 added tariffs of 25% to hundreds of billions of dollars in Chinese goods. Overnight, companies that had built their entire supply chain inside one country woke up to a brutal realization. That is a concentration risk they could no longer afford. Walmart, Apple, General Motors, all of them scrambling, all of them suddenly aware that their supply chains were built on a single, politically fragile foundation. And this is where the Western model made its fatal mistake. It had optimized entirely for cost and zero-day delivery. It had never planned for disruption. Then COVID arrived, and it exposed everything. When Chinese factories went dark in early 2020, global supply chains seized up. Car manufacturers couldn't source semiconductor chips. Pharmacies ran low on critical medications. Retailers watched shelves empty in ways they hadn't seen since wartime. The fragility wasn't theoretical anymore. It was on television. It was in the headlines. It was in your living room. And so a new corporate survival strategy was born. The consultants gave it a name: China Plus One. Don't abandon China, that infrastructure is irreplaceable, but add one more country as a hedge. One more production base that absorbs output if China becomes too expensive, too politically complicated, or too dangerous to depend on entirely. Most people have no idea this is already happening at massive scale. Apple has pushed key suppliers, including Foxconn and Pegatron, to accelerate production in India and Vietnam. Samsung has relocated the majority of its smartphone manufacturing to Vietnam. Nike and Adidas now run significant production lines across Southeast Asia. These are not minor adjustments. These are strategic relocations worth tens of billions of dollars. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. China is watching all of this, and it is not sitting still. Here's what most people are completely missing. China currently installs more industrial robots per year than the United States, Japan, and Germany combined. Read that again. One country. More robots than the 3 most advanced industrial economies on Earth. Combined. China is not waiting to lose its labor advantage. It is automating, aggressively, deliberately, and at national scale. The factories being built in China today look nothing like the ones from 2005. These are lights-out facilities, automated assembly lines, computer vision quality control, robotic welding, packaging, and precision logistics. Facilities where a skeleton crew of engineers oversees machines doing what 10,000 workers used to do, which means the cheap labor narrative is already obsolete. China is racing to become the world's most automated manufacturer, not just its cheapest one. And that race changes the competitive calculus entirely. By 2030, analysts project that automation could displace up to 85 million manufacturing jobs globally. And China intends to be the country building and operating those machines, not the one losing jobs to them. So if manufacturing is shifting, where is it actually going? Let's get specific. Vietnam has been the biggest winner so far. Samsung manufactures the majority of its smartphones there. Vietnamese exports to the United States grew by roughly 400% over the last decade. But here's the hard ceiling. Vietnam has a population of 95 million. It physically cannot absorb the production volume China handles. It is a relief valve, not a replacement. India is the long-term bet. Apple now manufactures approximately 12 to 14% of its iPhones in India, a figure growing every quarter. But India has infrastructure gaps that China spent 30 years solving: power reliability, logistics depth, the cluster ecosystems that make complex manufacturing efficient. The ambition is real. The timeline is long. Mexico is the sleeper story nobody is talking about loudly enough. Driven by nearshoring, producing close to where products will be sold, Mexico became the United States' #1 trading partner in 2023, overtaking China for the first time since 2002. Cars, electronics, medical devices, the growth curve is steep, and it is just beginning. And China? China is not going anywhere. This is the part that drowns in the noise of China is declining headlines. Apple still manufactures over 90% of its iPhones in China. The supply chain infrastructure, the cluster ecosystems built over 40 years, the technically skilled workforce. You do not replicate that in 5 years. You do not replicate it in 10. For complex, high-precision, high-volume manufacturing, China remains unmatched on Earth. What is actually happening is a stratification of global production. Simple goods, garments, basic plastics, low-cost electronics are migrating to cheaper labor markets. Complex goods, semiconductors, electric vehicles, precision components, solar panels, are staying in China or growing there. China is building the future of manufacturing while the world debates whether it's in decline. Here is the big picture. The era of one country making everything is ending. Not because China failed, but because the world became too complicated for that model to survive. Trade wars, pandemics, climate disruption, geopolitical realignment. All of it is forcing companies to diversify their production geography. The supply chains of the 2030s will be more distributed, more redundant, and more expensive. Which means the era of ultra-cheap consumer goods, the $30 sneaker, the $15 blender, may be quietly, irreversibly fading. And here's the twist that no one wants to say out loud. The countries winning factories away from China are inheriting China's old problems. Rising wages, environmental pressure, labor unrest. Vietnam is already seeing meaningful wage growth. In a decade, some of this production will move again to the next cheapest location on the map. It is a treadmill, and the only way off it, for any country, is to move up the value chain. To stop making cheap things and start making complicated, high-margin, technologically advanced things. China figured that out. That is why it is now building electric vehicles, lithium-ion batteries, and solar panels at a scale the world has never seen. The country that used to assemble iPhones for $40 a unit is now designing the technology that will power the next generation of global energy and transportation. Do you think the West can build those supply chain ecosystems fast enough to compete? Or is it already a decade behind? Drop your answer below, because this debate is only just getting started. Somewhere in a factory outside Hanoi, a worker is assembling a sneaker, and somewhere in Shenzhen, a robot is assembling the battery that will power the car you drive in 2030. Both things are true. Both things are happening simultaneously. That is not contradiction. That is evolution. China didn't lose the manufacturing race. It changed what the race is about. The real competition in global production was never about who has the cheapest workers. It was always about who has the deepest ecosystems, the fastest automation, and the longest strategic horizon. And that race, the one that shapes what you buy, what you earn, and where the world's economic power lives for the next 50 years, is very much still on. If this opened your eyes to what's really happening in the global economy, you won't want to miss what we cover next. Subscribe now, because the next chapter of this story is moving faster than anyone predicted.